I feel like I should call you Nick or Santa.
Yeah,
Not
I get that. I get that. I get that a lot this time of year, especially at Walmart.
Yeah. Wait, you tell them your last name is Claus at Walmart?
Well, it's because I'm Native American as well. So we have the band cards, and so when I do purchases, I'll use my band card, and they'll read my name on it. And not now so much, but before they used to get on their PA systems and say, "Chris Claus is now leaving on aisle whatever," right?
And then everybody goes, "Oh, it's Chris Claus. Must be the brother."
Yeah, I agree. So we're here to talk about the resolution: is abortion murder? Now, what I did you want me to start or?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So today we'll be talking about the resolution of abortion murder. Now, I do want to start off by defining some words. Now, fetus is defined as an unborn offspring of a mammal, in particular, an unborn human baby, more than 8 weeks after conception. So, what a fetus actually is a Latin word translated into English would mean small child, of course. So, murder is defined as the unlawful, premeditated killing of one human being by another. Now, abortion is defined as the deliberate termination of human pregnancy, most often performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. Just to give everyone a little picture to put in their head, by this week, your baby weighs 2¼ pounds, about the size of a large eggplant, measures 14.8 inches from top of the head to the heels, and he or she can blink and now support lashes with her eyesight developing. He or she may be able to see the light that filters in through your womb. He or she also developing billions of neurons in her brain and adding more body fat in preparation for life in the outside world. Now, would you agree with those definitions?
Yeah, but
Excellent. So it seems to me, right, that this is a living person, even at 28 weeks. Would you agree?
um, let's see. Should I go debate mode or discussion mode? Which would you rather? Do you want me more to debate or discuss?
Whichever. Doesn't matter to me.
Okay, then I will discuss. I'm pro-life.
Sure.
My sister is the organizer of One Life LA, which is the third largest pro life march, because you have the March for Life in DC, you have the one in San Francisco, and she has the one in Los Angeles. I started a chapter of Live Action when I was in high school. I'm very pro life. My
Sure.
issue with this phrasing and the way that the pro life movement often operates is the word murder rather than killing. So if it was a debate, if we were going to really go into that, I wouldn't accept that there's a child in the mother's womb, just because it's easier for the con to argue against that if you don't agree with that. But I will, just because might as well try and accomplish more. I agree with you that there is a child in the mother's womb.
Now, when would you actually say that there is a child in the mother's womb? I would actually be so bold to say even at 8 weeks, we could determine that, yes, there is a child in the mother's womb. Would you even go that far?
I'd probably go even further and say heartbeat. I think it's hard to argue with, once there's a heartbeat, that's a human person. But at the same time, the issue that I have here is murder as opposed to killing. Now, so let me ask you this. Let's say abortion is illegal. What is the punishment for the doctor? What is the punishment for the mother?
Well, that would have to be decided, of course, right? Now, the way that I would view it is if, now we have to take into consideration each case. I don't believe that all cases are the same,
Mhm.
right? Some women are raped. Some women actually would die if went to full term and had the baby, of course. So if the mother's life is at risk, I wouldn't determine that to be murder. Now, it also, you have to, depending on when the mother finds out that her life is at risk. Now, let's say at the 16th week, the mother finds out that her life is at risk and that she's going to more than likely die by giving birth to the baby. Wouldn't the mother make the choice soon after hearing that if she's going to terminate the pregnancy or not?
I'm sure she would. Well, but the thing that I'm asking about here more, there's something else that I'm going for here. Your definition of murder, which is accurate, was that it is unlawful and premeditated. But in order for
Yes.
something to be premeditated, there must be intent. The vast majority, like probably 99% of women who go in and have an abortion are not going, "Yay, today I'm going to kill my child."
No,
Because
but a lot of them are saying, I'm going in to have an abortion because of this. Because a lot of it, you would have to agree that what is it, about 60 to 70% of the abortions nowadays are basically used as birth control,
yes,
right?
yes. And,
So
and
if
that's what they
one
believe
is,
it is. They believe it is equivalent to birth control. So they don't believe it's killing anyone. So there's none of this premeditation. So this is why I come back to the question that I asked you initially. Let's just say it's a regular, everyday abortion. Who gets punished? Do you want women in a system where abortion is illegal? Do you want women to suffer life imprisonment or at least a huge life sentence for murder for having an abortion?
yes,
Each individual woman who has an abortion is going to go to
as
prison.
I said, depending on case, right? Now, if the mother's life is at risk and the pregnancy is terminated for that reason, I believe that those cases are different, of course, right? Now, let's just say that you're out walking around. If somebody is coming up and trying to kill you, and you then end that person's life, that's not murder. And you should not be held accountable for that. Or would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I
Well,
think
in the same sense, the mother wouldn't be held accountable for the actions because the baby that is inside of her is basically the reason why she is going to lose her life. Now, in instance of rape, if a woman's being raped and she murders the man that is raping her, is she at fault?
no, it's self-defense.
Therefore, if a woman is raped, now I believe that there are other avenues that a woman, if raped, could go down if the laws of abortion are changed. They do have a pill right now that can be taken up to 72 hours after after a woman does have sex to terminate the pregnancy. Now, I think that's a viable thing that a woman should be able to use, or even hospitals implement when a rape victim does come in. But this all stems back to knowledge, right? We
Yes.
have to teach the kids first. This has to be in the schools. They right now, when people are being raped, they're not coming forward. And this is because in society, a lot of times they're looked down upon, they're shamed, which they shouldn't be, but women are thinking that they will be. If we start teaching them as a child that if something like this happens, that it is objectively wrong and that we need to say things about this to stop it, I believe that more people will come out in the future earlier, which would prevent this type of thing.
You're right that this is about knowledge. And that's actually where I'm coming from here. It's this idea of knowledge. And the vast majority of women who are having abortions do not believe that they are killing a human being. They don't even believe it is a human being. And they have reason to believe that it is not a human being because, as you talked about with knowledge, they've been told that this is not a human being. There may be some individual women and there may be some individual doctors who go, "Oh, there is a human being in the mother's womb, but I don't care." And in that circumstance, then yes, that would be murder because you are killing with premeditated knowledge that you are killing a human being. But for the vast majority of the women who are doing this, they do not believe that they are actually engaging in killing a human being. They think this is
What do
just
they believe? I
themselves.
know, but what do they believe they're engaging in?
They believe that they are terminating a pregnancy, which they do not
Which
believe
would
is a
mean
human child. It's not a
what
human
would
child.
terminating a pregnancy mean though?
The current United States Supreme Court, under Planned Parenthood versus Casey, has ruled that late-term abortions are illegal. So the current law of the land in the United States is that there is a human person in the third trimester once brainwaves are there. But before brainwaves, it's believed that they aren't human. Now, most women aren't even really going into this whole level of when does it really become a child. They've just been told by their doctor it's not a child. So they do not have this sense of guilt, and so when they go through with this procedure, you are saying that they deserve to be put in jail forever, or at least whatever the consequence would be for murder. And yet there was none of this premeditated intent in what they are doing. So we can't treat them the same way. So this is why the United States and most legal justice systems have differing levels of killing. You have first, second, third, fourth degree murder. You have criminal negligence. You have manslaughter. You have all of these different levels. So remember, I am pro-life. I agree with you that there's a child in the mother's womb and that abortion should be dissuaded and that people need to be taught that there is a child in the mother's womb. But if they don't know that there's a child in the mother's womb, or they've been told that there's not a child in the mother's womb, then we cannot say that their action is murder because it's not premeditated intent.
So basically, you're saying that ignorance is bliss at that point.
What do you think a child soldier, you know, child soldiers in Africa and everything, are those children morally culpable for what they've been brainwashed into doing?
Well, I don't think you want to get into the moral background of the argumentation. 2 weeks ago, you had a debate with the abolish or whatever he stands for, which is a Christian, and you engaged in a type of morality debate with him, right?
Yeah.
Now, the flaw that I seen within that debate, if we're going to actually talk about morality, I agree with what he was saying, but he was just putting it across a different way than what I would have, of course. And the thing is that you're not able to justify an objective moral statement being an atheist, meaning that you must believe, being an atheist or even an agnostic, that you're comprised of the elements of the periodic table, of course. These things were created upon a supernova, which is an explosion of a star. So basically, in the layman terms, you are basically evolved stardust. So how would you be able to justify stardust doing something to another evolved stardust?
Like I told him in that debate, I am not trying to claim there is a 100.0% objective thing with regards to murder. What I am saying in this debate and in usual moral discussions is society has created laws based on what we see in the world, based on, and these are systems of morality.
So
they
your way of
100% objective morality, but they are systems of morality. And one of the key things that we have in these systems of morality is laws against murder, laws against rape, laws against such things. So then it just becomes what is the logically best thing to have. So when we have murder, what we're talking about is the definition of murder that you talked about: unlawful, premeditated, and with intent. This is why we do not hold child soldiers liable for murder, because it was not premeditated and it was not their fault. They were brainwashed into doing this, and they did not have enough knowledge to know that what they were doing was wrong. In the same way, a woman who has an abortion but does not know that there is a child in her womb is not engaging in murder. So.
When a woman doesn't know that there is a child in her body, you're basically giving the argument that ignorance is bliss. And when you say that abortion is legal and other things are legal, so that the moral judgment of that is an okay one, basically, you're basically saying that might makes right, right? And that's how you're able to justify morality. So for you to be able to justify morality, your justification for it is might makes right. Because a bunch of people say that it's good, it must be good.
You're missing the nuance that I'm going for here, which is, I am not saying there's this objective 100% moral thing with regards to murder. That's not what we're doing. We're saying when a government has a law about murder, does abortion fit into that category? And the category of murder requires premeditated intent.
So when the women are having abortions just because of a birth type thing, they're trying to prevent their birth. No other reason. you're still saying that that isn't murder because the woman is ignorant just because she can say that there's not a baby in her body.
When you say ignorant, you assume that there's this obvious everyone knows, but everyone doesn't know. There is a huge debate in the scientific community about whether or not there is a child in the mother's womb and at what point personhood begins. If this community has told the women, no, there's not a child in the mother's womb, it's not ignorance for them to have listened to this.
What community is telling the women that there is no child in your womb, and at what week are they saying this? So even at the 28th week, they're saying, no, there's no baby in that body at all. And which community is doing this?
The main argument that I've heard would be that of brainwaves, that a human person is defined by having the ability to think rationally. The definition of a human, philosophically, is
to think rationally. No, we can't do that because we know people that have brain diseases and abnormalities fit into that criteria as well, right?
Remember, I would agree with you. I'm not really worried about debating whether or not
we can't put that out there as a standard for determining if the child is a child in the woman's body or not, right?
I'm not putting it out there as a standard. I'm saying that there is a realm of philosophy and science that will make such arguments, and that currently the vast majority of women who are having abortions have been led to believe that they are not killing a human being. So it is not their fault for what they are doing. In the same way that the child soldiers, it is not their fault because they don't have enough information to know that what they are doing is wrong.
So again, your whole argument to is abortion murder is basically ignorance is bliss because they're ignorant of a certain thing. Therefore, that negates them from the possibility of committing murder.
My argument is premeditated intent. The legal definition is that there must be premeditated intent.
And if yes, now what does that fully mean?
Then it isn't murder, and we can't hold them accountable in the same way.
So if a woman goes into an abortion clinic and says that I want to have an abortion because I will not be able to support the baby, and I do not want my baby to grow up in poverty, things like this, life choices. You're still saying that that woman does not know that there's a baby inside of her? I believe that this is purely assumptions by you.
If there is a woman who says, I know that there is a human person inside of me who I am going to kill, then that would...
And you believe that they actually have to phrase it that way?
Or believe it. It's based on what you know. It's based on your premeditated intent. If you know, okay, there's a human person, I'm going to kill this human person, then sure, there would be some level of accountability for that. But the vast majority of people don't think that. They think that the reason that they are able to have these abortions is because the scientific, legal, and philosophical communities have said it's okay. There isn't a reason to say, all right, you should know that what you are doing is clearly morally wrong and is killing, when they don't have that information. There's no reason that they should have that information.
What do you mean there's no reason that they should have that information?
Ideally, you and I would both agree that we would like for the vast majority of people to be educated on the fact that, hey, there is really good arguments to say that there is a human person in the mother's womb. But currently, that isn't out there. And if that isn't out there, then it's not anybody's fault for not knowing that.
So you're telling me right now there is no knowledge out there that women can look into to know if there is a baby in their body or not. They basically just have to go on what they're told.
There is knowledge.
It's their job to look up things themselves when they're going through. That's what you're saying?
That's the way it currently is. Yeah. If you don't know, then it is your job to look it up for yourself. And right now, since a whole lot of people are saying, no, there's not a child in the mother's womb, it's not someone's fault if they listen to that.
I still don't get your argument. So let's just put it this way. If I don't know that I'm going to kill somebody, but I'm told to go kill somebody, but I don't know that I'm supposed to, like, this is what you're saying, is that there's we have to admit that there is information out there that actually says that there's a baby in the womb. Scientific evidence. Wouldn't you agree?
There is information out there that could lead one to believe that. And if someone really in depth studies it, they could come to that conclusion. Or they could come to the opposite conclusion. And if they come to the opposite conclusion, it's not their fault.
It's not their fault because they haven't come up to the other conclusion. So again, ignorance is bliss is your argumentation.
Difference of opinion is bliss.
What do you mean differences of opinion?
That currently the issue has not been answered in the legal, scientific, or philosophical communities, and there are differing views on both sides. So if a woman was to be looking into this issue, she will not automatically go, oh, look at this, 100% of scientists are saying there's a child in the mother's womb. Oh, I guess I better not kill this being. There's no reason she would come to that conclusion when, at the very best, it's a toss-up on that. Now, we can debate on whether or not there is a child in the mother's womb, and I personally would love to debate that, and I do debate that with people and say, look, see, here's all the evidence that says there is a child in the mother's womb. But I don't blame someone who hasn't heard that information and who, because there isn't this education out there for most people to know this. And you can lay it out in a way that makes sense. And I try to do that for a lot of people. Lay it out. Look, here's all the information. Here's the heartbeat. Here's when brain starts. Here's when pain is starting. You can lay all that out there. But there's going to be a lot of arguments on the opposite side as well. And if the opposite side is what has gotten is what currently controls the information, and they do, then it's not someone's fault for listening to what information they have been told.
Do I still have good sound on your side?
Yeah, do I?
No, you're a little low.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll move back forward. There you go. So did you hear what I said, or did I miss?
Yeah, I've heard everything you said. It's just it's just getting really low from what you were before. I'm not sure if something's happened or something else like that. So basically, now let's go through this. Now the stats of abortion: about 80% of Canadian women use form of contraception, compared to 64% of American women. So 64% of American women are using abortion as a form of contraception, and 80% of women in Canada. Now, when we look at the numbers, in Canada, roughly, I believe there's 100,104. In the United States in 2014, 652,639 were reported in 49 areas. So if we take 65% per se of the 652,000, you have 424,215. Added with the 80% of Canadian women doing the same, which is 80,083, we look at the full number between Canada and the US of being 504,298 babies murdered because the mother wanted to use abortion as a means of birth control. Now you're stating that all of these 504,298 women just merely didn't know that they had a baby inside them? That's almost the same as saying that the argument that slavery used, right? Slaves determined if the person was a property or a person. Same way, you're saying that the mother in these instances is able to determine if it is a property or a person. If it's a person, then it's murder. If it's property, then it's not murder. Correct?
No. It's about premeditated intent. If someone is intentionally killing another human being, that is murder. If there is
intentionally killing another human being, would be also a form of birth control. So having an abortion just because you don't want to have a baby would provide intent.
Do you think that birth control, contraception, is acceptable?
What's that, sir?
Do you think birth control and contraception are acceptable?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Because it prevents pregnancies. It doesn't terminate pregnancies. That's the difference.
Right. And here's the problem. Most of the people who are using abortion as birth control believe it's the same thing. That when you read those stats to me, that's what they've been told. This is just another form of birth
That
control.
they believe it's the same thing. They're trying to rationalize it being the same thing. That's different than believing it's the same thing. They're trying to justify their actions. That's all.
Well, here's the thing. I would agree with you that there probably are a few instances in which people go, "Yeah, I know that there's a child in my womb, and I'm going to."
I would actually say that there's more than you actually want to admit or even believe. Because let's just put that number out again: 504,298 women between Canada and the US. And you're saying the majority of them just didn't even know that they had a baby in them, that the
Yeah,
baby wasn't actually a person.
you got to use the right terms here. They knew there was a baby, but they didn't believe it was a human being because it didn't have the necessary capabilities, or so they thought. And
So
they
what is it? A kidney? Is that what they would decide it as?
have you never heard of pro-choice arguments before? They say it's a clump of cells. They say it's a cancer.
Yeah, but basically you have to acknowledge that you're a clump of cells.
Huh?
If we go down to the root of it, you're just basically a clump of cells as well.
Yeah, I know. But the question
So
is,
then, what's the difference of you being a clump of cells and the baby being a clump of cells? Honestly,
remember, I am pro-life, and I would agree that if we were really, really, really to go into the logic behind it, most people, if they were to be shown all of the different like proofs and everything, would go, okay, yeah, it does appear that at least after there's a heartbeat, there's a human being there, or at least after there are brainwaves, there's a human being there. But if that has not been done, and if your doctor is telling you, yeah, this is the procedure you should do, and if scientific community is saying, yeah, this is a perfectly acceptable thing to do, and if philosophers are saying, yeah, this is a perfectly acceptable thing to do, and if you hear all that and go, oh, okay, there's not a child, I'm doing an okay thing, I'm just using more contraception, that's not a problem, and it's not something that we would treat in the same way as someone who sees another person who they want to kill and goes, all right, I'm going to stab you in the face. They're not comparable at all. So here's the thing. I'm not saying that abortion is good, and I'm also not saying that abortion shouldn't be stopped. I do think that abortion should be stopped. But when we ask the question, is it murder, as you yourself agreed, and as the legal definitions will tell you, that means that it was premeditated knowledge and intent. If that knowledge and intent are not there, then abortion is not murder. It might be maybe criminal negligence. It might be gross negligence. It might be something like that. It might be fourth degree murder. I don't know. But it's not the specific straight up murder.
so you're still putting forward the argument in the resolution, is abortion murder, that abortion cannot be murder because these women do not know that there is a baby inside of them, therefore it can't be murder.
Okay. Two things. First of all, I'm not saying abortion can't be murder. I think abortion can be murder. I just don't think that it is murder on its own. It's only murder if it meets the definition of murder, which would be unlawful, premeditated, and intentional, which the majority of the time it's not. So it can be, but usually it is not. And then what was the other thing you said there? There was something else that I missed. What was it? I should have written it down.
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
Can you hear me still, or am I too far back?
It's just really low. I can still hear you to a point, but it's still really low.
Yeah. Sorry. I think it's probably that I'm leaning back. I need to lean forward. So let me see. Can you say the last thing you had said again, and then I will.
Oh yeah, if I can remember. So basically, it's only murder if the woman knows that there is a baby in her body. If the woman doesn't know that there is a baby in her body that is a human being, then it is not murder, is what you're saying.
That's part of it, yeah. And it's simply that abortion would be held to a different legal standard than shooting someone or stabbing someone or that sort of thing, because there's clear premeditated intent and knowledge of what you are doing. With an abortion, there is not the same level of interaction, there's not the same level of knowledge, and there's not the same level of consensus on whether or not you're killing someone. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. You keep using the word baby, but just because there's a baby doesn't mean that there's a human being. And many people have been told, okay, this is not a human person, that there's a clump of cells that is a baby, but that's not a human being yet. And it will be later on.
Same argument, though, I could say that you're a clump of cells, you're not really a human being. You're just basically a clump of cells.
Sure. I'm not saying that this is a good argument or that it's an accurate argument. I'm just saying
I'm just saying that if you're viewing the baby as a non-human being in your body because you're saying it is merely just a clump of cells, you are ignorant to the fact that that is a scientifically refuted argument. Scientists don't even use the clump of cells argument anymore because it's so erroneous, because they have to acknowledge that they themselves are clump of cells. So the clump of cells argument was thrown out a long time ago. So if a woman's still using that argument, it's because she's following certain women on YouTube and just trying to justify her abortion.
Yeah, and they're justifying it. Yeah, exactly. And they have good reason to justify it because their doctor has told them it's perfectly fine, that they're just terminating a pregnancy. They're not doing anything wrong.
Can you cite me a doctor or a clinic that is actually telling these women that the baby inside of them isn't actually a human being?
Probably, yeah. Let me look at that.
Because you're making this assumption that the majority of women, when they're looking into this, are being told that the scientific consensus that the baby in their belly is not a human being. And I believe that that is false. Even if you go to like baby sites, how your baby develops and things to this nature, they even say at the 8th week, they determine that is a human being from then on.
So I am reading through just some Planned Parenthood things right now and everything, but they basically say that this is your choice, your body, and they don't believe that it's a human being because it's your body. And this is what women are continually told. They're like, there's a bunch of cells inside of you, that this is part of your body.
But just hold up there for a minute, so that the doctors aren't necessarily saying that that isn't a human being in your body. They're basically saying it's your choice then, right?
Yes.
So your whole argument now is flawed because your argument is predicated upon the woman being told that the baby in her body is not a human being, or believing that the baby in her body is not a human being because of what she's been told, right?
It's based on her not believing that there is a human being who she is murdering. She doesn't believe that she is murdering anyone because she doesn't believe that it's a human being yet. She thinks.
I know, but you said that these women aren't ignorant of this because there are people and places out there in societies that have deemed this as being a non-human being in the woman's body. But that's not necessarily true. These societies acknowledge that there's a human being in the body, in the womb of the mother, but they just believe it is the mother's choice to have the abortion or not.
Well, there's two levels to this. The first level is the vast majority of people are going to go in, their doctor's going to say, okay, you can terminate the pregnancy. This is basically contraception. Go ahead and go do that. And they don't ask any questions. They go, okay, doctor said it's okay, so I'm going to do that. Then there are the people who go, oh, I don't know, I'm conflicted. Should I maybe check and see if this is a human being, if this is a human person, if this is someone who I might be murdering? And then they look, and if they look, there is perfectly like a whole lot of literature out there that they could come to say, no, this isn't a human person, so it's okay. Either way, if either of those two things happen, then the person is not liable for premeditated unlawful action. they are still killing a fetus, but they do not
Now,
believe the
whoa,
fetus
whoa, whoa!
is a person.
You just used the word fetus, correct?
Yes, and you and I would agree that a fetus is a human person, but they don't.
But we would agree that fetus is a Latin word, correct? Translated into English would mean small child. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yes,
Okay, so why not just use the English words instead of using a bunch of English words in a sentence and one Latin word?
because that's the terminology that they have been told. You're killing a clump of cells. It's just a fetus. It's not a human person. That's what they've been told. And it's
I
not
know,
their fault
but
for
basically,
believing
you're
that.
just a clump of cells. You're evolved stardust.
We're,
That's what you've been told scientifically.
whether or
So
not
why would it be wrong for you to murder another person if they're just a clump of cells and evolved stardust?
whether or not someone is liable for murder is dependent on their state of mind. You're saying all these things about, oh, the child deserves to be protected. I'd agree. I would agree with that. But none of that has anything to do with whether or not the person who goes through with an abortion is guilty of murder. They might
So
have killed,
you're
but that is entirely different than murder.
so we got about eight and a half minutes left here. So what I'm saying is that the majority of women going in to have abortions today know in fact that they have a human being in their body and that they're terminating their pregnancy because of life reasons, not because they don't believe that there's a human being in their body. They believe that there's a human being in their body, and they believe that this world is a cruel place and that their life is going to drastically change because of this human being in their body. So they make the choice at that time to end the life of the human being in their body. That is the direct definition of abortion. And the reason why I can say this is because the women within the statistics, 80% of Canadian women, which is just gross in my mind, and 64% of American women do it just as a form of contraception, right?
Yeah.
They know that there's a baby in their body, they just don't want to birth it. That's the majority of women that are going through abortions today.
I don't get how you think that shows your side at all. If they think it's contraception and everybody thinks contraception is okay, even you and I both think contraception is perfectly okay, then they think that they're doing something that is perfectly okay. This isn't somebody going, yay, I'm going to go murder someone. This is somebody going, oh, okay, here's another form of contraception that my doctor said was okay. It's a way to stop the child from being born. They don't think that they're killing anyone. They're just stopping them before they are born. It's just a question of when life begins, and they don't think the answer is yet.
So then you would actually agree that the Nazi generals that were under Hitler, when they committed murder, they were actually it wasn't murder, right? Because they believed what they were doing was right.
There's differing levels of culpability that have to be held. When there is clear and obvious reasons for you to know better, like there was with the Nazis, that is different than with the issue of abortion. You and I would both agree that if that we would prefer that an education campaign and knowledge be put out there so lots of people know, hey, look, there is a human person here. But if they did not know, which the majority of people don't know, and the majority of people believe that there is this clump of cells, and the majority of people will listen to their doctor, and the majority of people, as you yourself said, treat this as a form of contraception, the majority of people are not committing murder with this. So abortion on its own is not murder. Premeditated killing is murder. And abortion sometimes could fit that definition. But on its own, and at least in the current society, abortion does not automatically equal murder.
Now, I believe with the statistics that I've shown, unless you can actually identify the social persons or communities that are telling these women that when they're aborting their baby, they're not, it's not a human being in their body at all. 80% of them are doing it knowing that they have a human being in their body. 64% of American abortions are being done, and women know that they have a human being in their body. They just don't want to finish the pregnancy. And unless you can show me these communities that are teaching that even after the 8th week, that there's not a human being in your body, then your argument's really moot at this point. Because even if you just go to any baby site, really, I'll just pick one. You can go to Facts and Figures. Oh, here's another one. Planned Parenthood. You can go to that one. Your Pregnancy, thebabyscenter.com. And that even says at 8 weeks, you have a human being inside of your body. Like, so where would you go that these people are saying that at 8 weeks or even further, it's not even a human being?
So the first thing that I would say is, actually, I don't need to show that. You need to show the opposite. You need to show, because you're making a huge presumption here. You are presuming that all these women who are having abortions that are know that they are committing murder, which is just crazy. And no,
not at all. As I said, I quickly Google searched baby's growth in the 8 weeks. You can go to the babycenter.com. That was the first link that was on the Google thing. And right there, it tells you that at 8 weeks, your baby is considered a human being.
So first of all, if I search abortion isn't murder, I just took a look at that, and there's hundreds of links you could go through with different groups who say, no, this isn't a human person.
No, definitely, if you're going to Google search, is abortion murder, you're definitely going to see that, right?
Yeah.
But we want to identify if the baby inside the woman is a human being or not. So let's say you're 8 weeks, or you couldn't be. Let's say your wife is 8 weeks pregnant, and she wanted to know if what is inside of her is a human being or not. She could go to Google, type in pregnancy in the 8th week, hit enter. The first or second article that should come up would be from the babycenter.com. Your pregnancy 8 weeks in type thing. And it goes through and it shows you pictures and it talks to you about your body, your baby, and everything else. So, and that's like one of the first couple links that you can Google search. Now, isn't that what a woman should be searching, to find out if there's a human being in her body or not?
That's one thing that she can, and both of us would agree. We hope that she will eventually.
And when you say that the person is ignorant, if they're not at least making one Google search to find out if what is in their baby is a human being or not?
You're assuming that they searched the right Google search in the first place when they could just as easily search, is abortion murder, which they come up with.
I know, but you're trying to assume that these women don't know what Google is. They don't know how to search if there is a baby in their belly, if it's a human being or not. Like, you're presupposing a lot of ignorance within these women.
No, they're listening to their doctors. They're listening to their medical professionals who tell them.
No doctor in their right mind would say that at 8 weeks, the baby is not a human being.
You're wrong. There is a ton of literature out there. If you look at this, I have
literature, but doctors?
Yes, doctors who say
there's a difference between doctors and literature, of course, right?
Sure, but there's a ton of stuff out there about people who say personhood is dependent on brainwaves, which starts in the 3rd trimester, which is why the current Supreme Court has ruled it's the 3rd trimester. That's the start of a human person, which is Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which is the current law of the land. Anyway, this is irrelevant. When we come back to the overall question here, is abortion murder? It comes down to whether or not there is premeditated intent. And I'm sorry, but when people are being told you're not doing this premeditated, you're not killing anything, you're just terminating a pregnancy, you're just dealing with a clump of cells, that's not their fault for going through with that. We don't treat that the same as murder. It might kill something, but they don't think they're killing a human person.
And I would say to that response that even if you look at the argument that ignorance is bliss, ending the life of a human being is still murder.